Good Friday, March 27th, 1964, at 5:36 p.m., the largest earthquake ever recorded in North America occurred in the Prince William Sound area of Alaska. The quake damaged buildings in the capital of Anchorage, and it damaged or destroyed other towns in Alaska by shaking or the resulting tsunami. The earthquake occurred on a fault where the Pacific tectonic plate pushes underneath the North American plate. When the Alaskan seafloor lifted up, it caused a tsunami, killing 122 people in Alaska and 16 people in Oregon and California.
Hello, and welcome to this Newsbar special report. Tonight we will be looking into the Good Friday Alaskan earthquake that caused devastation throughout much of the state. Our guests tonight include USGS seismology expert Chris Thrasher, Mayor of Anchorage Jack Crawford, and Valdez fisherman Stephen Kempf. Our first guest is Chris Thrasher. Welcome, Chris. Could you give us an overview of the earthquake?
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
This was the largest earthquake ever recorded at a moment magnitude of 9.2, and it was equivalent to 950 megatons of TNT. In comparison, the 1906 San Francisco earthquake was only 7.8 magnitude.
Wow. And why was the earthquake so destructive?
Well, first off, it lasted for 4 minutes, which is highly irregular. Most earthquakes only last for about a minute, making this earthquake much more destructive.
And where was the epicenter of the earthquake?
It was in Prince William Sound. The focus of it was 12.5 miles below the surface, under College Fjord.
And that obviously contributed to the tsunami.
Of course, if this earthquake had occurred under land, there would not have been a tsunami.
Can you explain why the death toll was so low? I mean, the number of deaths was tragic, but compared to other earthquakes, the number of deaths was fairly low.
Yeah, it's because Alaska's not very populated at all. Based on the 1960 census, there's only about 226,000 residents. While the majority of those lived in the Anchorage area, there still wasn't very much death toll because most of the deaths were due to the tsunami.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for coming, Mr. Thrasher.
Thank you for having me.
Certainly been very informative.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Here's an example of a building that was damaged by the 4-minute-long 9.2 magnitude quake.
Welcome, Mr. Crawford. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come meet with us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
So what kind of shape is Anchorage in at the moment? I understand that the earthquake caused extensive damage.
Anchorage escaped with only 9 casualties, mostly because the earthquake occurred on Good Friday, after all the businesses wrapped up for the day. School was out too. The greatest local damage was the bluff from Turnagain Heights to the downtown area, where a geological layer of clay liquefied under pressure and it slid towards the ocean. The control tower at the airport also collapsed, and a bunch of other buildings around town failed as well. There's a lot of damage, and it'll take some time to repair.
How did you personally escape the quake?
I was actually visiting a friend who lived out in the woods in a cabin, and when the earthquake started, we just ran towards the clearing and waited for it to be over.
Do you have any advance warning it was going to happen?
No. No one actually knew the earthquake was going to happen. But earthquakes are frequent, but no one knew.
Definitely not a 9.2 magnitude.
Yeah.
Once again, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to come meet with us. I think it was very informative for the viewers back home, and it was just nice to get an inside story on what happened during the quake for the city of Anchorage.
No problem.
Thanks for coming.
This is an aerial view of downtown Anchorage, the hardest hit area. In this picture, people are salvaging the leftovers from collapsed buildings in downtown Anchorage. This is a dramatic and horrifying view of the devastation to Anchorage homes. This is an Anchorage store minutes after the quake.
Our final guest tonight is a fisherman from the town of Valdez who was present when the earthquake hit. Welcome, Stephen.
Hi there.
Now, I understand you were near the sea when the earthquake occurred. What was it like?
Well, it was pretty chaotic. We were unloading a ship that was docked in the harbor when the shaking started, and I was lucky enough to get onto the ship, which then sailed into the harbor.
Did you get a chance to see how fast the tsunami was moving?
Well, I did see the wave, but it was difficult to tell how fast it was moving. Although I'd say when it passed under the boat, it was probably about 40 feet high.
Mm-hmm. The tsunami that followed the earthquake, how dangerous was it and what did it do to the town?
Well, it destroyed the town and damaged a lot of the boats that were in the harbor, and it destroyed a lot of coastal businesses.
Yeah. In all your years of living in Alaska, have you ever seen anything like this?
No, we've never had anything like this. We've experienced some smaller earthquakes, but this was crazy.
Were you personally affected by the quake?
Yes, I was certainly affected by the quake. It damaged a lot of the ships, and you need boats to fish. So.
Yeah. How will the tsunami affect the fishing industry in Alaska?
Well, it already has begun to affect the fishing industry, as as I said, most boats were damaged, and I've already talked to many people who say they're leaving to live with relatives until they can find a new job.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for people living in earthquake-prone areas?
Well, the only advice I would say is that to just know what to do and expect one, even if you're not in an area where you experience a lot of earthquakes.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
This view of a building burning was one of the few started as a direct result of the quake. The Alaska Railroad's locomotive was carried 10 blocks by the force of the tidal wave.
He never does.
Alright.
Yeah. Hey, we're recording. Just,
In the studio. Let's go.
yeah.
I'm going in. An earthquake doesn't just mean the ground shakes. A seismic fault can bring society to a halt. It's far worse than just seeing cracked asphalt. Liquefaction pulls buildings down, which wrecks your town. Your house is halfway underground, people in wreckage not found. 9.2 on the Richter scale, cause an entire state to fail. Homes are gone, the town moves on, people stay strong. Tsunami was a wrecking ball, causing what was left to fall. What 1964 had in store, left Alaska washed ashore. President Johnson reassures help is pledged, but all that said, 131 people are dead.
Massive wave rose from the seas, brought Valdez down to his knees. 30 people died on the dock. The town was 6 o'clock.
Anchorage shaken by the quake, sounds of buildings as they break. The layer of clay swept away, cars and people in the bay. 9 victims died in the end. There was not enough time to mend, not enough help to send. The government had a helping hand to lend. Anchorage will be repaired. The story had to be shared.